Hi everyone, this is Sonia from the Becoming Group, and in today's video I'd like to share with you on how a breakup actually brought me to my knees and ultimately to Jesus Christ. There are many stories told by believers on how they came to know Jesus Christ as their personal Lord and Savior. Every encounter is different. For me, this is the first time I'm sharing my testimony publicly because I always thought I was shy, but obviously I'm not. So here goes. I grew up in a church. It was like custom for us to go to church every Sunday, and I would go, not knowing, hearing about God, but not knowing him or having a personal relationship with him. In my little mind, it was like God was similar to Santa Claus, where if we were good, we would get good things, and if we were bad, we would get the bad consequences. So that was the limited idea that I had of God at the time. And as I grew older, I deviated from the faith. I started to do my own thing with God in the back of my mind, because growing up we would read Bible stories, and you'd have a little bit of God on the inside of you, but not that much, because the world consumed us so much. And so that was me. My life started to become one where I did not have any form of relationship at all with God, and I did not know what a relationship with God even looked like. I mean, I used to go to church and I've seen people, who were religious and who at that time were Christians, and I had a little glimpse of what it looked like outwardly, but as for the inside, I didn't know what that transformation would look like. And so I was just living my life as most people in the world would, not having any form of God in my mind. I wasn't thinking about God. I wasn't thinking about his word. Nothing about my life at that time glorified God in any way. I had relationships that did not have such a big impact on my life when they ended, because it was almost like, okay, this relationship ended, I can move on to the next after maybe a few months of crying or feeling bad about the breakup. I would just get over it after maybe a few months or even weeks. But this time it was different, and I was in university at the time, and I was just doing well in school, and then I met this guy that I thought was the one. And when you meet somebody for the first time, you start planning your entire future or your entire lives. Like, the person popped the question, will you marry me? And you're planning for a wedding and the rest of your lives together. And that person did not do any of that, but we just met, and I thought, this is the one for me. And so we met, and every single thing seemed perfect. He was the perfect guy. The reason why I said that he was different from the other guys, not saying that he did anything extraordinary, it was just the fact that he was there, and he became my best friend. We would talk about different things. We would spend a lot of time together, and that was not the case with my past relationships. And I thought this one was different, and I thought this was my soulmate, and I was telling everybody I had butterflies. I was so in love. But anyway, it went on for, what was it, maybe 6-7 months, and everything was, in my eyes at that time, was perfect, because I did not have great relationships in the past. And so when somebody started to give me a little bit of attention, I thought that was everything. And so it was almost like my life started to revolve around this person. It was just us in our own little world. And because we were spending so much time together, I thought, this person does not have any other time with anybody else. So in my mind, it was just me. I was like, I'm the right guy, I'm in school, we're studying together, our future will be bright. Coming to the 6th month or the 7th month of us being together, he went um, to the United States. I was in Jamaica at the time, and he went to the States, and I started to realize that something was off, because normally we would talk every day about every single thing, and I started to see him slowly moving away, and I thought that was weird because of the relationship in which we had. And normally, in my own experience, I knew that when somebody in a relationship, when you started to see them moving away from you and there's space and all of that, it's usually because the relationship is coming to an end. And in my past relationships, I would know that, and it would have been okay for me. They didn't have to say anything. We knew that the relationship would be coming to an end. But this time it was so different, because of how close we were and the relationship in which we had. And so I found it difficult to accept that this was the end. And so I confronted him about it, and I was like, what is going on? You seem really distant. This is not you. This is not how you normally are. What is going on? And are you seeing somebody else? Because you have to ask that question. When people are becoming distant, it normally means they are seeing somebody else or with somebody else. And so I asked that question, and he was like, no, I just need space. I'm really busy with this job that I'm doing, which is understandable, because I know how hard that could be for a student to be working and all of that outside of their own country. And I was like, okay, I understand that. But it continued, and the distance became wider. We didn't communicate as we normally do. And so I knew that it was not just the fact that work and all of that, it was more. And so I confronted him again. I was like, what's going on? I need you to tell me the truth, because obviously something is going on. And I got the truth. He actually said it. He said, and it was something that played in my mind for a very long time. He said, I don't want a relationship with you anymore. I was taken aback. I was like, what do you mean by that? You don't want a serious relationship with me anymore? And I just could not understand it. I was shocked, and at one point I thought he was joking. I took it for a joke at first. I was asking him questions about that, and I felt maybe he was just really upset. And so I was like, okay, here what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you some time to get yourself together, because obviously you're not thinking straight. And so I did. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna text or call or anything, because you're gonna come back. You're gonna come running back, because that was normally the case. And bear in mind, we didn't have any arguments or anything like that before. And so that would be our first major argument. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna give you your space to get yourself together, because you're not thinking straight right now. And I waited there for like 3 days and nothing. I waited a week and nothing. He didn't text or call or anything, and I started the message, and I was like, okay, so you're really serious, and still nothing at all. And months after, maybe a month after, I was just going through a very hard time trying to accept this, because it was just out of nowhere. We didn't have any problems, so it was just hard for me to receive that. And he didn't message me or anything, and at that point I was really stressed out. Everything was just a mess at that time in my life. I started to lose a lot of weight, plus what was happening with him, because I thought we were in this together, and he was obviously not with it anymore. And so it was even harder to think that if I got through financially, I would eventually see him at school, and it would be harder. But anyway, I got through. God came through. At that time I didn't know it was God, but I got through financially to go back to school with my, paying my tuition and my rent and all of that. And I did see him for the first time in like 3 months since he was away. We didn't talk or anything, but soon after I started to hear rumors of him being with somebody else, and deep down I knew that he was with somebody else. I knew that because people were talking, the word came back to me, and that was pretty devastating for me. They were holding hands at school. It was obvious that they were in a relationship, while me, I was just there and just suffering. I was suffering at that time, and I just didn't know what to do. Everything was just falling apart. And while just going through that, it was just a lot of drama and a lot of mess going on, things that I could not control. It was almost like I could not control what was happening with my life. I was like a complete mess emotionally. I was breaking down every single where I was contacting people that I would not contact, to talk, just to say how I was feeling and what I was dealing with. I remember, like months after that, my aunt said, coming closer to the end of the year, my aunt said to me, my aunt who is a believer, firm believer in God, and she knew a lot more about God than I knew, and she said to me, the best gift that you can give God for the new year is your life. And I held on to that. For some reason, I held on to it for such a long time, because deep down inside I knew that this is something that I needed to do. Deep down I knew that this is the path that I needed to take. But something was also holding me back, because in the back of my mind I was holding on to the fact that what if he comes back and I'm in a position where I am saved and he is not? It would not work. And so I was holding on to him in a way that I was thinking that he was going to come back. I was just hoping that that would have been the case, and I was putting off walking in the will of God, and I was just shutting God completely out because I was holding on to something that did not want to stay. Anyway, so the new year came and I was still in the rut. I was depressed, I was broken, and I remember just crying out to God, crying out to a God that I did not know. I did not know this God, but I heard about him, and I heard that he is close to the brokenhearted. And I remember just crying out. I said, God, if you are here, just help me go through this. And while I was going through, I remember just talking to somebody who was going to a church at that time, and they invited me to church, and I did not want to go. All I wanted was somebody to listen to me. I didn't want anybody to invite me to church. I didn't want to go to church. But because I knew where that would lead me, it would lead me to maybe getting saved, and I was scared about that. And I did not want to go. And so I planned that when it was time to go to church, I would not answer the phone. But anyway, I did answer, and we ended up going to church. And I remember I was just they were worshiping, and I was just caught up in worship, and I started to cry. I broke down in church. And coming to the end of the service, the pastor said, if anybody wanted to get saved, should come to the altar. And I knew what that meant, and I held back. I was like, I'm not gonna go up there. I'm not doing that at all. And the weirdest thing happened to me. I found myself walking to the altar. I could not control myself. It was almost like something was carrying me there. And I was like, in myself, no, Sonia, you cannot go. You cannot go there. You need to turn back. Like in my mind, it was just so crazy. You need to go back, Sonia. My mind wanted to go back, but my body just kept going there until I was at the top. I was right next to the pastor, and he said, okay, baptism is like 2 weeks from now. We're gonna write down your name. And I was like, no, I don't. In myself, I was like, no, I cannot do this. But I had a plan. I came up with a plan in my mind that the day of the baptism, I would not show up. I would not show up at all. So as you can see, this is all just God right now, because by myself I wouldn't have done it. And that was just my plan. I would not show up to the baptism. And so when I went home after writing my name down, just thinking about everything and what I was about to do or should do, I was so scared. And I remember in that period of time, I started to have some serious attacks, like demonic attacks, that I've never had before, and I didn't think it was real. And maybe in another video I will break down that with you, but stuff started to happen to me, and I knew that I was dealing with something else than what I would think was normal, like what would have normally happened to me. I was dealing with a different realm, and I realized that in that time that something powerful, something really strong, a strong force, a strong demonic force was keeping me in this situation where I would not get saved. And so I knew what I had to do. Deep down I knew it. And 2 weeks later, I got saved. I did it. And I remember in that time, I broke down and I knelt down on my knees and I cried out to God. I said, God, if you are real, if you are the God that I read about in the Bible, if you are that God, you need to show up in my situation. I need you to show up like you did for the prophets in the past, like you did for the men of God in the Bible. I need you to show up in my life. Bear in mind, in that same period of time, I had people coming to me, telling me stuff. This is what they're doing. When I was, trying to develop a relationship with God, and I needed Him more than anything to help me and to heal the brokenness that I was feeling on the inside. And so what I had to do, and I believe it was the leading of the Holy Spirit that led me to do this, to lock myself away, to remove all of those people, those toxic voices in my head telling me, whispering stuff to me. I blocked every single person out, and I was like, God, this is just me and you right now. You are the one that I'll be going with. You are the one that I'll be listening to right now in my life. And that's what I did. I locked in. and I tapped into that secret place. I was reading the Bible, I was making notes, I was listening to sermons, and at that point in time, this was 5 years ago, Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts was actually going through a divorce as well, and she had a lot of videos on there, and so I was watching her. I was watching different pastors trying to just build my spirit man at that time, and so I locked in, stayed in solitude for a long time, a very, very long time, trying to hear from God. And I did, and I did, and I did. God spoke so many times. God showed up so many times. It was unbelievable. God showed up in my life. He changed my situation around, and he healed me. He healed the broken, because I remember I made a commitment to God. I made a vow. I said to God, if you take this pain away, if you take this pain away, Lord, then I will surrender everything to you. I will give my heart to you. I will give everything to you, and I will walk with you for the rest of my life. And of course, I've stumbled, I've made mistakes and all of that, but there's nothing else that could remove me from the presence of God. I always find back my way, find back myself right on track with God. And so that is my testimony. I was heartbroken after that breakup. That was the hardest thing that I've ever gone through in my entire life. I lost a lot of weight, and I almost lost my mind. I felt myself losing my mind, but because of the goodness and the grace and the mercy of God, he held me, and he walked with me right through those hard times, those challenging moments when I could not even speak. He heard the groanings in my spirit, and he knew what I wanted to say. There were times when I could not even eat. I could not sleep. And he was there guiding me through, because he had a bigger purpose for my life. He had a better purpose for my life. And at that point too, I was dealing with satanic and demonic spirits trying to hold me back and trying to tell me, you are not enough. But God had the final say. He said, you are more than enough. You are more than enough. You are beautifully and wonderfully created by me. And I believe God. I believe I took him by his word. And here I am today in such a better place. I can look back and I say, if it wasn't for the grace of God, and if it wasn't for the hand of God on my life, I don't know where I would be right now. And so I don't want to leave without encouraging you. It doesn't matter what you're going through. It doesn't matter what you're dealing with. We serve a God who is a healer, he's a deliverer, he's a way maker, he's a protector. There is nothing that God cannot do. And we must get to the point where we take him by his word. We must believe him that he is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we could ever think or imagine. Take God by his word. And I can urge you, sometimes we need to step away from the noise to hear God. And I remember just, if it wasn't for those quiet moments where I shut out everything, every negative voice, every toxic person that was speaking in my ears, I had to cut them off. I cut them off. And so we must get to that place. If we want a divine encounter with God, we have to make steps. We have to make the necessary moves. We have to take the necessary actions to get to that place where we can hear God. Because at the end of the day, when God speaks, that's all that matters. That's all that we need to hear, the voice of God. And so I want to urge you today, it doesn't matter what you're going through, get into that quiet place with God. It may be a breakup that you're dealing with, like I've dealt with in the past, that hurt so much. It could be that. It could be problems, dysfunctionality in your family. It could be with school. You may have maybe having some rough times with college, with university, with your education, with even work. Just get into that secret place. God will never fail you. When everything else fails, God never fails. And so that is what I want to leave with you today. Be blessed and be encouraged. Bye.